Okay, what's going on YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're talking about a watch that's a little further downstream in budget terms compared to the stuff that I usually discuss, but this watch deserves its praises to be sung nonetheless, and it is my Seiko 5 GMT, which for any of you who have watched the channel in the past, you'll be familiar with this. So let's talk about it. So I got this watch back in April, and this watch, along with the rest of the Seiko 5 sports line, is basically an evolution of the 7S26 powered SKX divers. And unfortunately, I never owned an SKX because, by the time I had gotten into watches in, early 2022, it had it had already been discontinued when I, first started seriously collecting. But this watch right here is immensely satisfying to own, and for me, it suits my life much better, and I'll tell you why. So, with me, I have the SSK001 variant, which is the black bezel, black dial variant. Basically pretty standard, and it retails for about $475 US currently. The case is 42.5 millimeters in diameter with a 46 millimeter lug-to-lug length, making it very, very wearable despite its size. The watch is also 13.56 millimeters thick, so it does wear quite prominently on the wrist, and sliding this watch under a dress cuff might be a little bit challenging. The movement in this watch, is the caliber 4R34, which is a office-style GMT movement that beats at 21,600 vibrations per hour. It has 24 joules and approximately 41 hours of power reserve. According to calibercorner.com, the 4R34 is accurate between plus 45 to minus 35 seconds a day. But in my time wearing this, I've found that the watch runs within that range and then slightly better as well. It's nowhere near as accurate as, an Omega 8000 caliber or any Rolex 3200 caliber, but it does get the job done nicely, and you can depend on this for accurate timekeeping. The case and Jubilee style bracelet use stainless steel. This is an all stainless steel construction watch, and the glass is Seiko's proprietary Hardlex crystal, which I will talk about more later. Lastly, this watch is 100 meters water resistant with a push-pull crown, and I've taken this watch into the water before, and I've never had any issues with water intruding into the case. So it does just fine in that regard. But now that I've gotten the boring specifications out of the way, let's talk about the wearing experience. What do I actually think about this watch, and what are my overall thoughts on it? As I said earlier, I've owned this watch for about 7 months now, and I've grown to appreciate a lot of aspects about it, but there are definitely things that could be improved. This watch is really tough. I took this with me on an operation several months ago, and it stayed on my wrist constantly. I did not take this watch off except to, go to sleep or go shower. I performed a lot of manual labor wearing this watch. I hammered stakes into the ground, I dug holes, I set up tents, and this watch got absolutely caked in dust and dirt. And I even wore this while doing some weightlifting too, so this watch took a lot of shock. But none of these things seemed to affect the watch in any type of way, at least not measurably. Additionally, it kept accurate time while running continuously, and for the time that I was wearing it, it didn't require any manual adjustment. I wore this watch nonstop for about a month or so, and I didn't have to adjust it or fix it once. I must have really gotten lucky too, because this specific model I bought is just extremely accurate in all regards. Unlike the SKX, however, the Seiko 5 GMT comes equipped with a solid center and end links on the bracelet. So this Jubilee style bracelet that you see here is going to be much more durable than the previous model SKXs. I'm sorry about the focusing, by the way. I'll try to put some B-roll in or something so that you guys can get a better view of the watch. That way you don't have to look at my face the whole time. But moving on. Yeah, unlike the SKX, it comes equipped with those solid center and end links, and that enhances the durability and longevity of the 22mm bracelet. The bracelet itself, however, could be improved, I still have to say. Specifically regarding the clasp, which is stamped metal, and it just feels like the most delicate part of the watch. You guys can see, like, you'll notice the stamped metal on here is just, it's very thin and it's very jangly, and I feel like if anything on this watch was to break, the first thing to go would be this clasp. The clasp does have pinholes, however, which allow for some degree of micro adjustment in 4 positions if you have a spring bar tool ready. If you don't, you're kind of out of luck. So if your wrist swells up during the middle of the day because it's really hot out, you may have to take that watch off depending on how bad it is. I would like to see a fold-over EasyLink style micro adjustment option similar to what's available on Rolex bracelets. And it's a nice thing to have when your wrist does swell up in the heat. And that's something that has happened to me before. But with that being said, the lugs are drilled, so replacing the bracelet is something a bit more... Yeah, replacing the bracelet is a bit of an easier process than it would be if those drilled lug holes were not there. Personally, I plan on attaching a Zulu Alpha Commando Green strap to tone down the watch's formal presence and make it more acceptable for wear in uniform. Additionally, the Hardlex crystal is stronger than mineral crystal, and it does hold up well, but after having worn it through, again, some pretty intense manual labor, it does have a very, very small scratch on it. It's not going to show up on camera, but every time I look at it, I do notice that it's there, and that is something that you do have to contend with when you're not dealing with sapphire. I really would have liked to see a sapphire crystal and bezel instead. According to Two Broke Watch Snobs, Seiko's Prospex Solar Dive watches, Citizen's Tsuyosa, I don't know if I'm saying that right, and the Dan Henry 1970 come equipped with sapphire for around the same price, if not cheaper than the Seiko 5 GMT. I do understand the appeal of Hardlex being a proprietary material, but with sapphire being the second hardest material behind diamond, I really don't understand why the brand insists on, sticking with Hardlex for this watch. Even the $100 Steel Dive 1953 I used to own had sapphire crystal on it and a ceramic bezel. So, in my opinion, there's just no excuse for Seiko to be sticking with Hardlex. But as far as the Steel Dive goes, that watch's reliability issues were definitely a deal breaker for me. So that's an entirely different discussion. Some people will not appreciate the 100-meter water resistance, especially when you consider the context of this watch, again, being an evolution of the SKX, right? That watch had 200 meters of water resistance. It was a true dive watch, and you could take that down deeper, really. But with this being a GMT and not a dive watch, I really don't see any need to up that water resistance. The GMT Master 2, for example, only has 100 meters of water resistance as well, and you don't really see people complaining about that. I'm not a diver. I swim in the pool and I swim in the beaches of Hawaii. But if I were to go diving, I would have picked something specifically built as a dive watch, like a Tissot Seastar or a Seamaster or a Submariner or something along those lines, and not this. So who is this watch actually for? This watch is really for the entry-level or mid-level office worker who needs to keep track of a second time zone easily. It's for the world traveler who is going to a place where sporting something like a Rolex GMT Master 2 may attract some unwanted attention. It's for the serving soldier as well, who's looking for an affordable but high-quality timepiece that can be easily replaced if, lost or damaged. Overall, this watch does have the capability to look professional and put together, but it's also capable of taking massive amounts of punishment. Watches of Espionage has praised Seiko's for being basically like the Toyota Hiluxes of the watch world. They're simple, effective timepieces that you can really beat around, and should they fail, they're quite easily replaceable. because of their price. I personally have zero issues being rough on this watch. I'll go hammer stakes into the ground, jump into bodies of water, and I'll go shoot guns knowing that this thing will survive, albeit, with probably some more scratches. But with that being said, scratches to the metal are not a problem, as they can be polished out using, Scotch-Brite sponges to renew the brushed surfaces. I really don't consider resale value, to be relevant to a watch at this price point. I'm not going to be going to a gray market dealer or trying to sell this watch online. There's no point, right? This watch is too cheap. No, there's not really a secondhand market for a watch in this price bracket. With that being said, self-polishing is a non-issue compared to more expensive pieces from the likes of Omega or Rolex. Overall, whether you're a city-bound individual who treats his watches gently or an outdoorsman who's rough around the edges, you'll find something to love and appreciate about this classy, versatile pickup truck of a watch. But what are your thoughts on this watch? Do you like it, or do you think that there's better value for $500? Let me know down in the comments below. Also, please donate to the Hawaii Salvation Army. The people of Maui and Hawaii in general need your help. If you live in America, you know that the state of our nation has seen better days, and you'll know about the cost of living crisis that's ongoing. So anything that you can give truly helps. Thank you. Secondly, I am on Instagram @_worn-down-crown. Consider giving me a follow there. And lastly, if you're looking for a luxury watch and want to save some money, consider using the BEZEL app and use my code MORGANWEIBEL, all caps, no spaces, and get $200 off your first purchase. Thank you, and take care. I'll see you soon.